Hello and welcome to Raising Those Spirits. I'm Steve,
And my name is Sam.
and we've made it to episode 11.
Is that true?
Yeah, this is our 11th episode.
Oh, good.
22nd if you count, the Dads Digress stuff. But this is episode 11. We've only missed one. So we've been doing this for over 3 months.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Actually, it's
We're
much
doing
longer.
it.
This is bi weekly. That's 6 months, isn't it?
No, there's no way we've been doing this for 6 months.
And that's not even including the episodes that we recorded and never aired.
Oh my god.
We're digressing
Wow.
so rapidly.
Well, it's nice. It's nice that we got some podcast under our belt. And you know what? Now there's a nice little backlog people to listen to. Go recommend our show to your friends if they've got kids and want to talk, listen to podcasts about dads doing spooky stuff with their kids. And now you got a little bit of a backlog getting you through your commute.
And if you stuck with us through 11 episodes, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
sincerely.
we appreciate it.
We
That's
do.
so nice.
So we're in September now. I mean, when
Mm.
this releases, I think it'll be October. But we're moving into the school season. Have you been doing anything spooky?
Spooky. Let me tell you what I've done recently. I think I talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. I picked up a copy of Women's World magazine's Halloween Treats special issue.
Yes.
And I initially just picked this up because I thought I could hand this to my kid and she would be occupied while I opened up and put away the groceries. And she got super into it. She was very excited to flip through the pages, and she did find a couple of things that she wanted to do. And of course, the one of the big things that she wanted to do was the item that they have on the cover, which are crispy treats, Rice Krispie treats that have melted, decorating chocolate on them, and then you use little candy eyeballs. You use decorating frosting to make faces on them. And this was super easy and super fun. And it was a great Halloween project, just like a special treat project that I look forward to doing. You can really do this for any holiday because you can just get whatever color melting chocolate you want. But something that I think I'll be happy to do for like the bake sale when she starts doing bake sales at school. um, I'll run through the basics of it. You could easily find instructions for this online. I'll see if I can find like instructions for it from the same magazine if they have them online. All you need is Rice Krispie treats, and the great thing about Rice Krispie treats is you can make them yourself. It's three ingredients. It's butter, marshmallows, and Rice Krispies. Or you can buy them. There are so many different like pre-made Rice Krispie treat options. You could get like just a full sheet of them and cut them out yourselves. You could get the individual packaged ones like at the 7-Eleven. Super obtainable. Melting chocolate, you can get this at any craft store. We just bought like 2 bags of white melting chocolate and mixed in our own colors so that you could, we had whatever food coloring colors that we wanted, as opposed to just like buying a whole bag of red ones because you're not going to use them all and it's a big waste. You melt it up in the microwave, you dip your Rice Krispie treat into the melting chocolate. You decorate it however you want, so you can put whatever you want on it, like sprinkles, candy. You can put other candy. We just did the basics, but you could put whatever you want on these things. You could treat them like a cupcake and give it a little like frosting or piece of crushed up candy, whatever you want. And just give the melting chocolate enough time to harden, and bam, you have a fantastic elevated Halloween Rice Krispie treat. And it was fun. We got a full I always measure the success of an activity is how long I can keep my kid away from the TV. And this was a full hour. So, highly recommend this project.
Nice. An hour is good.
Yeah. And it's so simple. Like this is all microwave. Like literally you just melt your marshmallows and butter together in the microwave, mix them with your Rice Krispies. You melt your melting chocolate in the microwave, dip your Rice Krispies in them. That's all there is to this project. And it's
Love it.
creative, it's fun. Yeah, it was so good.
Okay.
That was a yeah, that was my main spooky activity. You can tell I'm really excited to talk about it because it was such a big success. And we were done, I had all the Rice Krispie treats I could want. I had so many of them. It really
I've
makes a lot of Rice Krispie treats.
all right.
What have we been doing?
Well, I was on vacation. For the first actual vacation I've taken since my son was born, and it was a staycation. But it was still the first actual like time off for me that I've taken, and that was very nice. So we didn't do a ton of spooky stuff, but we do have a large old historic graveyard in my town.
No, I
And
love those.
yeah, so we took a long walk across town and through the historic graveyard, and it was one of the last nice summer weekends. It's like still summer air quotes, but it was just really
Yeah.
nice and peaceful. We haven't really gotten to go there with my son wasn't really old enough to like fully push around it in a stroller because it's not paved. It's a historic graveyard. Now he's big enough we can do that stuff. So that was really nice. And on another spooky note, we one of our local churches, everyone woke up in the morning and there was over 2 dozen vultures had just landed on the roof and were just hanging out there. And it was just a very spooky atmosphere. Someone took a bunch of pictures of like the early morning light and just all the birds, and it was very, very atmospherically spooky. And I thought that was a really cool thing to wake up to one day.
Yeah, I think your town is infested with vultures.
I mean,
From what it sounds like. It sounds like you're just surrounded by vultures all the time.
I'm not going to say I don't see them in my backyard or on the side of the road ever. To say that would be a lie.
One time I was driving through I think I was in Utah. I was in Utah and it was such a scene out of like a movie where like in the middle of the road was the roadkill and there was like the two vultures fighting over the roadkill. It was
Mm-hmm.
one of the most like, oh, I'm out in the West moments of my entire life.
I could see that.
It, they're big, they're scary.
They are
They're massive birds.
they are very large. You don't realize until you near them and you're like, "Oh, you've got like a 3.5 foot wingspan. You are a very large bird."
Yeah, they've got big wings. They have jaws that are made to like crunch bone.
They they keep my property clean. I like them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, hey, the one
You
thing a
know who
vulture's good at is cleaning up dead animals.
you know who never finds dead animals at a party in their backyard? Me.
Man, so I need a vulture to hang out in my backyard to
Yeah.
clean up before I throw a party.
I mean, it would be easier. So yeah, that's my spooky stuff. Not a lot, but fun.
Hmm.
Oh,
Steve,
and
here's a. Hmm?
oh, I was gonna say you can come by. I had the exterminator come by and seal the house so snakes can't come in anymore. So
Oh no,
you
I'm
can come up
glad.
to my house.
All right, next time I'm at your house, I will not fear the snakes. Steve, can I tell you about something that I found in the back of this Women's World magazine that has me very intrigued?
Please do. And next time you see a Women's World magazine, pick it up because we are getting a lot of mileage out of this Women's World magazine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, in the back of this magazine, I'm looking at it now. You can't tell this because this is a podcast. They have an advertisement for the Kensington Cozies murder mystery series.
Okay.
And Kensington is a publishing company, and they seemingly put out only like Halloween, well, only like murder mysteries that are made to I'm not sure. I guess they're, to appeal to the readers of Women's World magazine. So it seems like the sort of books that get eventually turned into probably Hallmark or Lifetime movies.
Okay.
And I found this one, and maybe it's a little bit seasonally early, but I wanted to talk about it. It is Liz Ireland's, That's the name of the author. Mrs. Claus and the Halloween Homicide. Now, this is, I think, the second book of the Mrs. Claus murder series, and it's Mrs. Claus, as in the wife of Santa Claus, who is also investigating murders. So, like, when there's murders at the North Pole during parties and things, she goes and she investigates the murders. So, this one is an elf named Tiny Sparkletoe is found dead in the snow outside of his cottage, and Mrs. Claus has to solve his murder.
So Mrs. Claus is the law at the North Pole.
That's seemingly the case. Sh-
Okay.
And I'm so intrigued. And, like, I hate that I don't have time to sit down and read this. Like, I can't justify sitting down and reading Mrs. Claus and the Halloween Homicide where my life is right now. And I think that's a travesty.
Do you think you have time to sit down and film the script for this? Because I would be
Oh
down.
no, I we should, yeah, no, let's quit what we're doing and we're gonna call up Hallmark Channel and be like, "Hey, we're gonna produce Mrs. Claus and the Halloween Homicide, the movie." We could totally do it.
We've got a C-list starlet. We know Cindy Valentine. We're gonna
We
call
know
her up.
enough people.
We're gonna call her, cast her as Mrs. Claus. Everyone loves to see an '80s pop star in a weird made-for-TV movie. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I'm into this murder mystery that you have found.
Yeah, I want everybody to go to kensingtoncozies.com and just look at the different stuff they have available. There is some I would in if I had like 2 more days in my week free, I would start a Kensington Cozies book club and start reading these because I am really, really interested to see what else we find. Because what else? Mrs. Morris and the Vampire. There's another one, The 7 Year Witch, which is part of the Witch Way Librarian Mystery Series. Like, just
This
the sounds of these.
I didn't know they made these anymore. This is such like a weird 1920s like pulp women's magazine type of a thing.
Yeah, these are, I mean, seemingly very popular. Halloween Party Murder, like really just getting straight to the point with that title. It's Halloween Party Murder. And that book, aside from being like a murder mystery, also has party recipes in it.
Awesome.
It's like half party cookbook, half murder mystery.
Well, this makes sense. You remember, I mean you might not remember.
Mm.
A few years ago now, possibly more than a few years ago now, there was like a big thing with book clubs where like you drank what they drink in the book while you're reading the book. So it was like a book club and like spirit of the week type of a thing.
I was aware of the phenomenon, yeah.
Yeah, so like if you were reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, you were drinking aquavit. Which, that type of a thing. Is that kind of like what this is? Where you're just like, hey, there's this murder mystery. Also try a gin and tonic.
I mean, it could be whatever we want it to be. But this one does seem to be, yeah, that does seem to be what they were doing.
I love it. I love that it's still going on.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure to tell you about that because I found it intriguing.
Awesome. Very, very cool. I'm glad to know about this. My wife will actually probably be like very excited to hear about this.
I'm telling you, just go to the grocery store. Any grocery store right now is going to have this on the shelves. I've seen that every one that I've been to. It just says Halloween treats, and it's celebrate with Women's World. And I have more Women's World stuff to talk about when we get to our next segment, to be honest.
Okay. Um, do we want to jump to our next segment? I'm done with this segment.
Clearly, that was
Yeah,
the
clearly,
setup I was.
even if I had something I wanted to talk about, I'm more interested in this, so please tell me.
I'm just lobbing you softballs on this one to get set up to my
Yes,
own bits.
clearly we are going to your next bit. That is all I want to
Uh,
talk about.
So, another thing that's in this Women's World magazine that I picked up is a lot of cocktails. Shocking, I know. And some of them look super gross. So, for, our Raising Those Spirits section of Raising Those Spirits, I want to talk about some of the cocktails that they have in this Women's World magazine. Specifically the cinnamon teeny, which is like a cinnamon martini, which sounds fine, I guess. I'm not a crazy big martini person, but here's the ingredients list of the cinnamon martini. Corn syrup. Corn syrup, number one. Number one ingredient is corn syrup. Just putting that out
Like
there.
Caro syrup type of corn syrup?
Just says corn syrup. Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh my
Again, I
god.
haven't tried this
I
because
don't
it
think
does
I've
not look
ever
particularly appealing.
had corn syrup in a drink.
No, it shouldn't be. It doesn't belong. It's incorrect. It's not
This
something that should
seems
be
like a
happening.
genuine like 1920s cocktail where they were like just make it drinkable.
Number two ingredient, black decorating sugar. That goes around the rim. Number
Okay,
four.
I
Oh,
worked on a horror movie. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I worked on a
no, keep going.
I interned at a horror movie in college, and I was in charge of special effects. And
Mm-hmm.
the first two things you've listed were like the first two ingredients in the fake blood I made. Is all I'm gonna say.
And you were good at making fake blood, I remember.
I was very good. I had a very good recipe, but you are in it is bad that it is this similar so far.
Mm-hmm.
Not looking
Okay.
good.
Third ingredient, four brown mini M&Ms. Brown M&Ms are the least, in
Fun
my opinion, appealing. They're brown. Why are we using brown M&Ms for anything?
in this day and age.
Four mini marshmallows. Marshmallows and cocktail. Again, not like a combination I'd usually go for, but sure. Two cocktail skewers. Not an ingredient. That's not going in. Ice cubes. Half a cup of cinnamon vodka, 2 tablespoons of dry vermouth, and 2 drops of orange liquid food coloring. So, what you do to make the cinnamon teeny is first you're gonna brush the rims of your martini glasses with the syrup. So maybe that's what that's for. That's just to get the sugar on, and you dip the martini glasses in the black sugar, so you get a black sugar rimmed glass. So that's okay. So that's where that corn syrup is going. Then you're gonna use your marshmallows and M&Ms to make the marshmallows look like eyeballs, which you then skewer and put over the top of your drink. And you mix the rest of the ingredients together in an ice-filled cocktail shaker and strain into the glasses. And what you end up with is just a dark orange martini in a black sugar rimmed glass with fake eyes on top of it. And it does not look good.
It does not sound good.
No, I don't want to drink this. I'm going to, I think, make it for a party at some point because it's so atrocious looking.
Absolutely. You gotta have that thing that after you've been drinking a little while, you can dare each other to drink. Or to pull out as a novelty.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the idea of having a martini with marshmallows in it. Like, what the heck is that? That's
But
ridiculous.
but I don't want a brown martini with a marshmallow. Like
Yeah, it's a dark orange, so it's not exactly brown, but it's not brown.
it's it's I don't love it. I need to see a
No, I don't
picture
think
of
it sounds
this.
good.
You need to post a picture of this.
I will post a picture of it along with this episode, but I'm going to send you a picture of it right now so you can see it. Hold on. I'm sending this to Steve. Okay, did you
Oh,
get it?
yeah. Okay. Look, it's cute. Like on the aesthetics, on the aesthetics, they got it. But again, I can't imagine eating the marshmallow with this and being like, yes, thank you. I feel like the marshmallow is just a vehicle for the aesthetic. I don't
They
know.
look almost like Muppets.
They do. They look like Beaker a little bit.
Yeah,
Like
I see Elmo.
I see an orange cookie monster, which I think is an actual Muppet, but again, that's my wife's knowledge. That's not my knowledge. Oh, man. This is a lot. This is a lot to take in.
That's why I had to talk about it on the air.
I could see that. I could see you flipping pages and just come like to a grinding halt and be like, "What are you?"
What is this? That's pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah. I had a what is this moment, but on a good moment with mine.
Ooh, tell me
So,
about it.
for my drink, we went out. One of the things we do when we do staycations, because we do them more often than not, because just life happens. We keep trying to take vacations, and then something always happens that gets them canceled. So what we like to do on our staycations is we go out to eat a lot. Like the money that we would have spent like on the vacation, we're like, let's eat really well this week. And we found this place on across the border in Massachusetts. This cute little restaurant whose name I cannot remember at this moment, but they were great. Really cool aesthetic. Fire pits, outdoor dining, umbrellas, really good food. But they had a ton of great cocktails. My wife had a cider sangria that was killer. It had like
Ooh,
a
that sounds good.
they had like a caramel cinnamon rim around the edge. It was really good. But I got the whiskey cobbler buck, and it was incredible. It reminded me. I don't know if you remember the signature drink from our wedding, but it reminded me a lot of the signature drink from our wedding.
No,
But
I don't remember that.
yeah, it was very tasty. I literally don't know what it was. I've been on a quest to try and find out what it was, but this tasted a lot like it. It is Crown Royal Peach Whiskey, triple sec, lime juice, blackberry simple syrup, ginger beer, and an orange. And it was so good.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It was so refreshing. It was the perfect like end of summer, the weather's getting a little cooler type of a drink.
Sure, because it got that like kind of spiciness to it from the ginger.
Yeah, it's got the
Uh,
ginger and then like the blackberry and the peach are more like end of summer, milder fruits as opposed to like the big citrus hits you usually get with the summer drinks. And it
hmm.
it was insanely good. If you can find a recipe for it, I recommend trying it. Or if you're in Southern Mass, um,
Try every restaurant in southern Massachusetts until you
yeah,
find this.
I have no I my wife picked the place out. I have no idea how to find the name for anyone. If you if you really want to know, hit me up on the Facebook and I will give you an answer. That's what I've got for you.
That's a good one. All right. Sounds like some good drinks.
It
Well, it sounds
was
like one good drink and one atrocious mess.
But that's a good balance. You have a fun, atrocious mess, and then just like a nice, relaxing drink. It's all about the Zen balance.
Nice.
So, our topic this week, we are sticking with the school theme from back to school, but this week we're going to be discussing things that we read in school that like have stayed with us. From those times, like any spooky thing that you read at a formative young age that like it's still kind of in your mind. So for me, that book, I had a few of them, but the one that I knew I had to go to is called, it's a short story, and it's called The Fat Man, and it is by Joe R. Lansdale. It was written in 1987. It was actually originally published in the Horror Show magazine as a short story, but has since then been included in several compilations of his short stories. But also in 1995, Scholastic Books put it in a compilation made by Bruce Coville, Bruce Coville's Book of Nightmares, Tales to Make You Scream. And I
Hmm.
am 99% sure that is where I read The Fat Man. So it's actually the second book. When I brought up this category, I had two books that I immediately thought of, and both of them turn out to be short stories from Bruce Coville's Nightmares to Make You Scream, which I thought was funny because I was always more of a R.L. Stine guy than a Bruce Coville guy, but it looks like Bruce Coville, End of Day, I remember his work a lot more than I remember R.L. Stine's work.
Hmm. Yeah, Bruce Scovel, I mean, he did a lot of like, a lot of stuff from our childhood.
So the reason I never really got into Bruce Coville was because he was so popular, but if you couldn't get this week's Goosebumps book, there was like 28 other Goosebumps books. If you couldn't get Bruce Coville's Book of Nightmares, there was only like two other Bruce Coville. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot
Hmm.
of. He didn't have the quantity, so I think I just didn't get into him based on library wait times as much, but he did stick with me. And I remember when
He
we
didn't have a lot. I felt like I remembered him having a bunch of stuff, but
I'm
maybe I just
talking.
remember his.
Well, he had like his my the. I already did one of his. My teacher flunked the
Hmm.
planet. My teacher fried my brains. My teacher is an alien series. That was
Right, right,
Bruce
right.
Coville. I'm talking, but I wasn't as into like alien stuff as a kid. Also, we talked about how I just couldn't get that book, but I did get a hold of
Hmm.
the Book of Nightmares. I didn't get a hook of like he had the Book of Monsters and the Book of Aliens, and like he had lots of short story compilations, and those were what were hard to get a hand on. And
Hmm.
that's where I kind of, didn't get as into him. But I did, I believe we read The Fat Man in class, and it was so weird and bizarre. So I actually looked up when we started talking about this podcast and kind of like compiling influences and things we eventually wanted to talk about and stuff. This is one of the first things I put on the list. And I
Hmm.
remember researching it because I couldn't remember the name of the book or who wrote it. For years, I didn't know where this came from. And I was like freaking out. And there was a lot of other people on the internet when we started looking at it, it's doing the same thing. And I was like, was this book something we were supposed to read in fourth grade? Was this something that accidentally got put in like the big pile of books for us to all pull from our reports, and I just happened to grab like a grown-up horror novel? And online, I found several people who said the same thing. When like on the forums of like what is this story, they were like, I think it was a kid's book. I read it as a kid, but I don't know if I was supposed to. It's really messed up. And I didn't feel as bad, but I did eventually learn it was The Fat Man by Joe R. Lansdale, and now I know that it was in Coville's Book of Nightmares, not Bruce Campbell's Book of Nightmares. That's a whole different thing. Um, and I've got a lot of thoughts about this. Um, it is a surreal horror story, but you don't know what you're getting into when you start it. It is So, as I was looking up the reviews of it after I read it, kind of like trying to information mine a little bit, I read five different reviews, and they all said roughly the same thing, which is my opinion as well, which is because it's a book of short stories, so everyone kind of went through and reviewed every story, gave a quick synopsis, kind of, gave their thoughts on it, and every single person said, I can't really describe The Fat Man to you. You just have to read it. And it's like a 7-page book and it's free online. So I would recommend doing that. I will try and talk about it, but I am putting that up front. this is something that it seems to be not just me, it's just hard to truly do any sort of justice to without just sounding like a weird fever dream. It's kind of, I got a lot of Coraline vibes off of it as an adult, actually, but like a fucked up precursor, almost like if, oh man, who wrote Neil Gaiman sat down and was like, hey, I sat down and read it and was like, hey, what if I made that for children?
Hmm.
Um, it was potentially, and I know I've talked about this in other episodes, and I'm sorry, I'm not actually talking about the book yet. I will get there. I know I've talked about this in other episodes. I think this might have been my first introduction to body horror. And again,
Whoa.
I know I said that in another episode, but upon further examination, it might have been this one. If it wasn't this one, this might have been the first time I liked it. Because the imagery in it, like the words that this guy uses are like just perfect to create a picture, but the picture is almost like a Salvador Dali painting. Like the words go together and they form a sentence and you can picture it, but it's not something that could be happening. It's like too surreal to imagine. It's like Scrooge McDuck swimming through his coins. Like that's not like a thing, and yet you're watching him do it, but on a horror level. And so the imagery really clicked with me, and it may be what pushed me from liking spooky things to loving spooky things. Because around fourth, fifth grade is really where like I went from like liking Goosebumps type of books to like only reading Goosebumps type of books. And I really think this is the thing that flipped that switch to I like this to I love this. This is a lifestyle. Um, After this book, it just really picked up, and that's where I expanded into the Alfred Hitchcock books that I've talked about. I've expanded into so many other authors because of just this and wanting to recapture this feeling. Because I remember as a kid thinking, like, oh, this is really fucked up, but also for like the first time enjoying that feeling. You know, when you're reading like a horror and you're like, oh, this is like intense and crazy, and I need to know what happens next. I'm loving this. I love this feeling. I think this was the first book that really hit me with that on the spooky side. So, okay, this is, and I think we might post the link here. It is free online.
Hmm.
The basic premise of this book is there is a weird fat man, as he's referred to. He's this obese man who lives on the edge of like a small farm town. You kind of get like a
Hmm.
Midwest farm town type of a vibe. And these two kids make like a it chapter one stand by me type of like summer promise that they're gonna figure out what the deal with the fat man is. Because no one knows anything about him. He never goes into town. He doesn't have electricity in his house, but he does have a phone. He orders all of his food, but he orders like an obscene amount of food. Um, so they're gonna get to the bottom of this. So they go to spy on the Fat Man and kind of end up in like a Lovecraftian horror situation.
Oh my.
Yeah, so they're watching him through the windows of his house, and he has no furniture. He has an end table with a phone on it, and the entire rest of the house is just boxes and boxes of food, like containers, like empty pizza boxes, Chinese food containers, like kind of like hoarders will like stack everything up and have paths and stuff going through it.
Hmm.
Except he will just like dive and swim through it and pop out in different locations. And so he's this weird fat man. He wears khaki pants, never shoes, never a shirt, no matter what time of year. He and so they watch him just kind of like taking the trash out, not even making a dent in his trash, and then a pizza delivery happens and he gets five pizzas. And he has a weird crescent moon tattoo on his stomach under his belly button. And he, as he's cleaning, just starts like dancing around like a ballerina, like not like a man of his size should do, just through the trash and like singing in this very light tip tap voice as he like clogs around. And then he gets these 5 pizzas and he just starts shoving them into his stomach, like directly, but they can't see what's happening because he's facing away from them. And then he goes to a far wall of his house where it's the wall of the house, and he opens a door and goes downstairs, but there shouldn't be a door or stairs there. That is the wall of the house. And so they sneak into his house and they go down into the basement and they find he has been killing and replacing people in the town with like marionette puppet versions of themselves, almost a la Coraline.
Oh man.
And then they find 2 suits that look like them in the basement. And so the fat man corners them in the basement, and it turns out the half moon on the tattoo on the stomach is actually the mouth. And one of the kids immediately gets eaten whole, basically, in a very graphic, cartoonish, and yet visceral way. And the other one is trying to escape, but when he gets back out, he's not in like normal Kansas. The way he describes it is again, it's very Coraline like, where he comes out on the other side. And it's him like in the tall grass in the fields trying to get away from the fat man as like arms are reaching out trying to pull him in from the stomach, and it's just like it's all very unnerving, and the language used is very like flowery and deliberate but off-putting.
Hmm.
And he eventually also gets devoured by the fat man, and that's just where it ends. And it is
Damn.
yeah, it's heavy. It is very good, like, but I was just like, why is this in something for fourth graders? And like everyone I found online was like, yo man, I read that in fourth grade, I'm reading it again now in my 30s because I felt I had to, because I had to, like, it's kind of like going back and revisiting a demon to show that it's not really scary. It was like I was really afraid of this as a kid, and now I'm looking at it and like you can see, like, it's almost like what we were talking about, Are You Afraid of the Dark, where like that is clearly just a bad makeup job now, but like in the 90s it was terrifying, except everyone went
Hmm.
back and was like, oh no, this is just genuinely unnerving, got it, cool 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 cool. This is a real monster. um Seems to be the common consensus. I almost called you and made you read this because I wanted to see your reaction, and it's so
Well,
short.
now I absolutely want to read it. So definitely send that link.
Yeah, it is. It's good, but it's very different. I don't think I've ever read anything like it. I do know apparently Netflix has turned a lot of Joe Lansdale's short horror stories into like shorts, and
Hmm.
I need to know if this is one of them because I just need
I
to see
can't
it.
find anything about it online because as you've been talking, I've been like searching,
I had to
and
search
it's
to
hard to
find out,
find.
but when you do find it, the people who talk about the fat man are like, okay, yeah, no, no, thank you.
I think it's extra hard to find because in 1980, what was it, 1987?
Yeah,
Looks
and
like that's the same year the TV show Jake and the Fat Man came out.
ah,
So everything I find for it is just Jake and the Fat Man,
that's fair. Yeah,
which is not a show I ever watched.
I had
I
that
could
pop
not
up
tell you anything about it.
a few times, but this says it's age level 9 to 12. I disagree, but I'm okay. It always stuck with me. It's again, me and the internet, I think, are wholly agreed on this one. You can't do this justice. You just have to read it. And then I feel like you can talk about it with someone else who's read it, but just describing it, it's beyond words. I did
All
just
right.
send you the link. It is, you got to go about 3/4 of the way down the page to get it to it because it's like the full compilation of his short stories that's published here. So just scroll down until you see the Fat Man. The author's note on the Fat Man, because he has an author's note before every book, every short story in this book, and a lot of them are flowery and why he wrote it and how it got rejected for being too scary from like the Twilight Zone, so he decided to publish it because he couldn't let the story go away, blah 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 blah. The Fat Man has none of that flowery fondness or language. Author's note is, I don't remember a damn thing about writing this one, which is always terrifying for something this hard. I'm like, did you go into just like a fugue state? Like, where did you don't even know where this came from?
This story
Like,
came from beyond you and was just told through you.
that's what that sounds like. Like, he has so much to say about the other short stories. He's like, I don't remember this. And like Stephen King said that about Cujo. He was he I believe it was Cujo. It was back in his like really bad cocaine days. He was like,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I went on a week long bender and I opened my desk at the end and I found Cujo in it. And I wrote it while on like a 5 day like just bender. And so like that I understand. You were doing a lot of cocaine. This guy, what do you mean you don't remember a damn thing about one? Again, did like some eldritch being just speak through you?
Wow.
He was like, I like it, but yeah, I have no no other things to really say. Check it out. I would love to know what you think about it, and I would like to know what you did because I don't know what else I can really say about this.
Sure. Well, my pick this week was kind of an outside pick. I picked this, and your first question to me was, "Is that spooky?" And I said, "I remember it being spooky."
Yeah, my
And
wife is kind of a spooky wimp. Like she likes
mhm.
the spooky aesthetic and stuff, but like she definitely is a little bit of a spooky wimp when it comes to like watching horror. And this is one of her favorite childhood books. So when I said you were doing this, she was just like, for your spooky podcast?
Well,
So,
here's the book. I went with From the Mixed Up Files of Miss Basil E. Frankweiler, which was one of my very favorite books as a kid. And I did remember it being kind of spooky. If you're not familiar with this book is about two kids, Claudia and her little brother's name escapes me, even though I just reread this entire book today. Or I didn't actually reread it. Jamie, Claudia and Jamie. I listened to somebody reading the book because I wasn't gonna have time to sit down and read it myself. They are a brother and sister. Claudia is 12, Jamie is 9, and they decide to run away and live in a museum. They move away to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And when I read this as a kid, the thing that stuck with me was just them being alone in the museum when the museum was closed. And that's one of those things I think along the lines of Scooby Doo, they do get involved in a mystery. So in my mind, that's the thing that stuck out to me the most about this book is these two kids who run away from home and now they're hiding in a museum at night trying to solve a mystery. Listening to it again today, like I said, I found somebody who read the entirety of the story on YouTube and I listened to that while I was tooling away with other things. And I realized like that ends up being such a small part of the book. I think it's the thing that stuck with me because that's the sort of thing that I seek out. I seek out mystery stories that take place at night. So even though The book itself, which is a fantastic read, I recommend it to um, all your elementary school kids, all of your maybe very early middle school kids. I think they'd be have a lot of fun reading this one. Uh, Listening to it again, I could see that there was a lot. It is a very different book from the one that I remember, just because there were things about it that I connected with back then that I can kind of see past now. I think the interesting thing about this book is when I was young and I read it, I thought the main characters were so smart and so clever. It made me think, wow, if you wanted to move away and run away and hide and live in a museum, it's something that you could do. It made me think that that's a thing that is possible. And listening to it again as an adult, and I realized that, like, oh, these are little kids, and this plan would absolutely, positively never work. It only works because it's a story and it has to work for a period of time. But like they were gonna get caught because they don't know what they're doing. I think the writing is very clever because from an adult standpoint, listening to the kid's thought process and going, "Oh wow, what a terrible plan. There's no way this would ever work." But also the kids being so confident in their plan and it being the exact sort of plan that two little kids would come up with, that's why it resonated so well with me when I was younger. So I think the thing that I take away from rereading this now as an adult is that if there are stories from your childhood that you have not revisited, just like you did earlier with your short story, it's so worth it.
Oh
It's
yeah,
so absolutely worth it.
I will agree. The the same thing happened to me where the things that I viscerally remembered about Bumper Crop, not Bumper Crop, the Fat Man. Bumper Crop is one of the compilations that I found it in where I was able to read it.
Hmm.
Even though it's only a few pages long, I remember like that final chase being so much longer. I had completely forgot about like the Body Snatchers story arc of mine. And I remembered the actual chase, which is probably a page and a half, being the majority of a much longer work. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that's just the part that just stuck with me at that age, but it was really at the end of the day a smaller part of the whole.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's exactly what I mean. When you read these as a kid, different things are going to connect and stick with you that you can see them in a completely different light now as an adult. Yeah, because when I was a kid, I thought of this in the sort of the same vein as Scooby Doo, because it's we have kids solving a mystery in a mysterious location. They're trying to solve the mystery of whether or not a sculpture was made by Michelangelo or if it's a forgery. They're trying. That's the mystery that they're trying to solve. So it's like an art mystery. Um, yeah. So you have the kids. You have the spooky location. Again, rereading it, realizing it's not really spooky. You have the mystery. You have the eccentric old woman, Mrs. Frankweiler, who shows up at the end, who is very much that sort of. Uh, I don't know if there's a name for this type of character, but she's kind of the Charlie of the Charlie's Angels or the Miss Frizzle. That those are two very different types of characters.
I
But the
get what
person
you're
in
saying
charge who
though.
knows what's going on. The one who knows what's going on. The person with the the person with the secrets. The person who has the information that you need to get to. Your eccentric um professor type, I would call them. Yeah, that's what I would say. Your eccentric professor type. It has been adapted into a movie twice, once back in the 1970s and again sometime in the 90s. The book is from 1968, so it's again really interesting to read it and be like, oh, this is how this. If two kids ran away in 1968, if they got far enough, they really could, stay lost in a way that couldn't happen now, just with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And like
Yeah.
I one of the few things I know about the book is like it's so long ago that like they go to New York and they get a subway ticket because or a train ticket because two kids can ride on one ticket back in the day. And I'm like, that's not a thing anymore.
No, no, they make mention of that, like, oh yeah, we can have two. Yeah, they were able to make it work because they were able to get onto the train, and once they were already on the train, they had the tickets. They had the ticket, and they were able to, it just didn't look strange to the conductor. And there's just so many things that would raise red flags now. And of course, there is they're blissfully unaware of this, but their parents are freaking out back at home trying to find them. Um, but all the information is like going out through newspapers. There's no Amber Alerts at this time. There's no the information doesn't get around nearly as fast.
Yeah.
But I was also reading it, and I was just like, your parents must be freaking out
Freaking
right now.
out.
Because they end up, the book takes place over the course of the week. These kids are gone for a week. And I was like, your parents are suffering in a way that you cannot understand. And you two are just having an adventure in a museum.
Time of
Your
your
parents are going to
lives.
be, yeah, they're just fine. They're like, oh, well, we sent them a letter to let them know that we'd be okay. And I'm like, no, your mom, like, think about your
Also,
mother right
letters
now.
take so long to get delivered.
Yeah, that's also true. It's not an email. It's not going to get there right away.
They
It's
might
going to
have
take
beaten the
time.
letter home.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Like that is a
So
possibility.
that is absolutely what I would say is the brilliance of this book. Is if you read this as a kid, you're going to see the whole thing from the kid's point of view, and it's just this sort of like whimsical adventure that they take themselves on, and they're very proud of themselves because they're able to make it in New York on pocket change for a full week, just scrounging and scraping what together they can. And it's like, wow, what a fun adventure you two were on. And then as an adult, they give you just enough information to let you know that their parents somewhere are completely beside themselves and terrified because they don't know if their kids are coming home. It's like, do I let my kid read this and think this is an okay idea? And of course, I would, because I read this book as a kid, and I certainly never got the wherewithal to think I'm going to run away from home and live in a museum.
Yeah, this will be fine. I'm just gonna run away. Dad would not have given me this
So,
book if he didn't want me to run away.
so even though I did again reading it again as an adult, I realize it is not a spooky book. I can absolutely recommend From the Mixed Up Files of Miss Baisley Frank Weiler for your young um, for your preteen at home, or for you. Read this as an adult. It's a fantastic book. It's 160 something pages. You can read it in an afternoon. Look on YouTube. There's plenty of videos of people just reading it. I don't know what the legality of that is, but apparently they're available.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend.
I never read that one. I know every time my wife and I love to go to the Met, and every time we go to the Met, I get the mini Miss Frank Weiler tour. Um, and so I've always meant to watch it, but never have. But now that I've got a kid, maybe it'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen any of the movies. I can't speak to the movies.
Fair.
But I can tell you that the book holds up very, very well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what have you been doing with your adult time? Have you had any adult time?
Not a ton of it. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show. What I've done most recently is there was a day where it's like, I'm gonna cook something and I'm gonna take my time. And I didn't really take my time because I did this in the Instant Pot, but I did some turkey tacos. And I did those in my Instant Pot. I had some very fresh vegetables that a coworker of mine gave me. So I had fresh tomatoes, fresh picked from the ground garlic. I had some onions. I threw this all into the Instant Pot with a half of a turkey breast and a jar of salsa. And I made turkey tacos, and I took the time to shred the meat. I took the time to blend the sauce and strain it so it was just this nice, really smooth, almost creamy sauce because it did emulsify with all of the turkey fat. And I just had these really smooth, really good tasting tacos. And that's what I did with my adult time. I just took a little extra time to cook a nice meal, and it was so satisfying. So I
S-
can recommend taking a little bit of time to cook as the ultimate treat for yourself because it's really going to pay off because you're really going to feel good about it when you're done.
Yeah, I always tell my wife if I win like the lottery or something ever, I'm going to do so much more cooking than I do just now in my general day-to-day life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you use ground turkey for that?
No, it was a turkey breast.
Turkey
It
breast.
was a it was skin on, bone in. I removed the skin when it was done cooking. I shredded it up. Obviously, I got rid of the bones. Um, but it was yeah, just half a turkey breast. They got them at Wegmans.
Cool. I every time I try and cook with a with ground turkey, it goes terribly. So I was just gonna be like off the bat, I'm not into this. But turkey breast, perfect. I can work with that.
Yeah. Ground turkey is tricky because it's so low in fat, it makes it dry out really quickly. But you also want to cook it thoroughly because it's poultry and you know that it could have a coli. And also it just has, you know, ground turkey just doesn't have much of its own flavor. It becomes whatever you cook it with.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really tricky ingredient. It's surprisingly tricky because it's so basic. It just does not stand on its own at all. You have to make everything else going with the ground turkey the real star of the show, and the ground turkey just being kind of a vessel for protein.
Maybe one day I'll try it again.
No, sure.
Okay, I have finally watched all four Insidious movies. That was well,
Okay.
I'd seen the first three. I've seen the first
Mhm.
two multiple times. I really like the Insidious movies. My wife wanted to watch the new Conjuring, but then we kind of read reviews about it and we weren't sure. And I remembered that before we moved across the country, like shortly before, I was in like Target or something. You know how sometimes they'll have like four movies for $5 type of like,
Mhm.
and it was all four Insidious movies in one bundle, and I was like, hell yeah! And then like promptly got relocated across the country and put it in a box and never watched the fourth one. And we had one of our good friends over that we hadn't seen in about 2 years, and we uh we popped that on, and I liked it. It was one of those I told you this story to lay the foundation for the rest of the story type of a movie. It was
Mhm.
it was not as good as Insidious 1, 2, and 3, but I feel like it's because they were laying the groundwork to expand the universe in a new direction and they had to kind of introduce a bunch of new characters and stuff.
I've seen all of those movies, and I tell you, I don't remember the plot of Insidious 4. I've
Insi-
definitely seen it.
Insidious 4 is a prequel, and it is like the week before Insidious, where the psychic lady has to go to her hometown and clear out the haunted house that she grew up in. And it turns out she hasn't seen her brother since she was 16, and it turns out he's got a daughter that also has her gift.
Okay, now I remember it.
And I'm like, you just told this story because you need a living psychic, and she eats it at the end of Insidious 2.
Did she die in? I think she died in
But
Insidious
Insidious
1.
1, yes, she dies at the end of Insidious 1. And at the end of Insidious 2, her assistants go off without her, but you can tell she's still helping them, like, from beyond. But in this one, they introduce her psychic niece who has a romance with one of her assistants now. So part 5 is gonna have all of them. And I actually checked IMDb, and it's already in post production, and all these new people they introduced are going to be in the new one. So it's not a bad movie. It's definitely the worst movie in the series so far, is what I would
Yeah,
say.
a lot of the current like horror movie franchises I'm not a huge fan of. Like I've seen all the Insidious movies, and they're fine. I've seen the Sinister movies,
I did
they're
not like
fine.
Sinister. We turned it off.
That's the Ethan Hawke with
Yes.
yeah, so Ethan Hawke and it's a movie ghost. It's a ghost that comes out of the movies. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen its sequel. I thought it was fine, but there's just kind of not distinguishable.
Yeah.
Like even The Conjuring, I mean, The Conjuring and Insidious and Sinister, they share a lot of the same actors. It shares a lot of the same people who are putting those movies together. They really blend into each other. The Conjuring has its own cinematic universe, I guess.
Yeah.
I have not seen the most recent Conjuring. The more you read up on the Warrens, the more you realize they were really not good. In real life, they were not really good people.
Yeah, that's my
They,
problem because I really liked the first two Conjuring, but it is a problematic fave. So I agree on that one. It
yeah, I'll
you
still end up watching it because I think I've seen all the other movies in the Conjuring universe just because. No, I haven't seen La Llorona. I
and I
think that's
haven't.
a Conjuring.
That's not a Conjuring one as far as I'm aware.
I think
Annabelle
it's like
is.
almost connected.
I think the Annabelle movies are, and the Nun movies are. I don't know if La Llorona is. Would have to
How many
check
nun? No, there's only one nun movie,
for now.
and there's three Annabelle movies.
That sounds right.
Because I think they did a prequel. They did an Annabelle movie that was a prequel to The Conjuring, and they did a prequel to that movie. So they kept prequeling,
That's
and
what they
then I
did with
think they
Insidious.
finally,
Everything's prequel. Because part three
yeah,
was a prequel as well, and I'm like, I wanna. I'm kind of invested in the story. Could we get back to the story?
yeah, stop prequeling. Just keep telling the story. If why not start with this story if that's interesting? Why are we doing all these prequels?
For
J-
that one, I feel like they killed the psychic at the very end of the first one for like shock value, not realizing how big it was gonna get. And then they were like, oh no, we've got a franchise and we killed the main character at the end of the first one. We're just gonna do a whole line of prequels with her.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. It was like we want to do another movie. We want to do keep doing movies, but we don't want to keep paying Patrick Wilson to
I was
do these
about to
movies.
say that. I was just like, you can't afford Patrick Wilson every time.
Right. So we need to get Lynn Shane. Is that her name? Lynn
Yep.
Shane. Because we can afford Lynn Shane, but we killed her, so we have to make reasons that even though she's dead, she's still in these movies.
Yes. And they were like, well, we can work this whole angle where she's a ghost and she's still helping them, but then you still need a psychic to be able to interact with Ghost Her, so they made part four to introduce that psychic. So they and
Yeah.
now they have two are coming out. One's in post production already, and one's in pre production development phase right now. So they're
So we're
working
gonna
on
get
it.
up to Insidious. We're gonna get up to Insidious 6.
Yep,
That seems so unnecessary.
I'll take it. The thing is, I really liked it when James Wan was directing. I think he's an amazing horror
Sure.
director, and he's no longer directing them. He's executive producer on them, but like end of the day, he's what really made a lot of these things work. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't like Sinister. It was like, hey, what if we made a James Wan film without James Wan? And it just, I don't think they hit the necessary visceral beats that he hits.
What we really need to do is a James Wan universe crossover so that you have Insidious versus Fast and the Furious.
Oh,
You
that's
can
the
do
logical
Fast.
conclusion.
It's the conclusion. Fast and the Insidious.
Fast and the Furious 10 Highway to Hell.
Oh, there you go.
There we
Oh,
go. It's done.
that's the movie. That's the movie. Okay, done.
Why did we leave Hollywood, Sam?
We should go back. I don't know that we ever made it to Hollywood. We hardly made it off of Staten Island.
Yeah, we were definitely Manhattan and New Jersey based. Like, oh,
All right. Well, why don't we wrap it up? This has
yeah.
been a long episode.
Actually, I think it's been one of our shorter episodes. Whatever,
Has
we'll
it?
figure that out. Uh, who knows? Well, thanks for joining us. Only the edit will, know how long
Only
this
the
has
edit will
been.
tell.
And thank you for staying with us for 6 months of episodes. I'm Steve,
I'm Sam.
and we'll see you next week with all the digressions that didn't make it into this episode.
Ooh, enjoy.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.